session. And it's some of my favorites is to connect and do these presentations with our recent alumni. So I'll briefly introduce myself and then we'll dive right in. My name's Jamie. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Alzar. I've been connected with the school since I actually went to their summer program back in 2010. And then I've been on the admissions team since 2015. And it's just some of my favorite parts is getting to hear from our wonderful alumni about what their semester experience was. And so without further ado, Jenna, will you introduce yourself with your name, what semester you attended, where you attended from?
Okay, I'm Jenna Travers. I came in the fall 2023, so semester 23. And I go to Green Hill School in Dallas, Texas.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to be a senior.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And then when you were looking at the semester options, why did you ultimately like to do fall for your semester?
I think honestly, just thinking about like I run track, and so I wanted to be able to like come back home and run track in that season. And then just looking at the way like everything was structured at Alzar, I thought it would fit my schedule just better. So
yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I always love starting out with the opening day photo because it is just so funny how everyone is like standing with their hands like they like it's all all new faces. We're about to dive into our fall semester for this fall 24. And opening day, there's probably so many feelings. It probably feels like a million miles away. But what did you initially think when you arrived on campus and got to meet all your peers?
I think I definitely had some nerves like the first day showing up because it was just like a room full of so many new faces. But like the first thing we did when we got there is we all went out on the green and we were like playing games together, and we went inside and we like my first friends I made like playing a game of Uno around a table, and like it was super easy because like everyone was new to it at the same time. Like it wasn't like anyone knew each other already, so everyone was just so like open and willing to like have conversations, and it was honestly such a super fun day because I got to learn so much about them.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love too that it starts out with everyone needing to have like name tags on. And then at the very end of the presentation, I have a photo of like when y'all were down in Chile. And you can see a very big difference. Everyone's like just so much more connected and things. So that's awesome. Well, I'm just going to briefly go through kind of some main points of Alzar School. So we've been running programming since 2004, established as a semester school in 2012. And have been offering wonderful semesters and now gap programs as well for high school graduates. And the mission of all of our programs is to build leaders who are going to positively impact the world. And so what that looks like in our semester is we use the three major lenses to ultimately build up our students' leadership abilities. So the first is our engaging academics. All of our classes are at that honors or AP level. And we've worked to put together a curriculum that aligns with a majority of high schools throughout the country, like all the typical math, science, history, English classes that you would take at home. And and I think it's just a really wonderful opportunity to stay on track with your academic career and also take a really intentional semester to dive in deep to the subjects as well. Next is our outdoor adventure. All of our students go backpacking and whitewater paddling. You don't need to have any prior experience in this before attending. But we ultimately utilize the outdoors as a tool to, build up those leadership skills and I think really form the community, getting to go out and, backpack in Patagonia and going rafting on the beautiful Salmon River. Like all those different pieces are just really wonderful tools to not only explore the wonderful landscapes, but really get to know student like one-on-one so much better. And then last but not least is that culture exchange. We spent ultimately 7 weeks down in Chile. Students both live at our Chilean campus and then also go out on a 2-week-long expedition block. But even outside of just the cultural exchange that takes place all the way down in Patagonia, I would say that students are coming from so many different backgrounds, lifestyles, and viewpoints in the cohort itself. And so the getting to know peers from such different places is a real cultural exchange throughout the whole semester. So to start out, I'd love if you would tell us about the Idaho campus and what was it like living in a yurt?
Okay, I had so much fun living in my yurt because it was just like from the first day you were living with like 6 other girls, and it was just like it was an awesome space because we were like so close and we got to spend so much time together. And it was just like it's really cool to be able to like go back home and tell people I lived in a yurt for that long, it was just awesome. And I like the Idaho campus is just absolutely beautiful. Like all the trails around it, like it was so much fun to be able to spend time like during like free periods or like after school when we had rest to like walk around and just like spend time. And like it's so different than Texas. It was just so awesome to be able to like learn and like have classes outside and like just like our teachers made like such a good job of like did such a good job of like making the most of like the spaces that we were in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always love to clarify that they do look pretty rustic, and they are, but all these yurts are actually quite roomy inside. I think this video does a great job of, just showing every student has their own lofted bunk and desk and storage space down below, as well as like a full bathroom. We have Wi-Fi, like all the different things. So it isn't like if you've ever been in the backcountry yurt, it's a little bit different, a little bit of an upgrade from that. And I'm curious then, what did you figure out there's a wood burning stove that's like a form of heat. It doesn't need to really kick on for the fall semester initially, but did you guys end up using it, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, honestly, we didn't use it for like the majority of our time in Idaho just because we never really needed it and never got that cold. But it was like fun, like learning how to use it, and we definitely did use it on some of the colder nights, like right before we left, and we would just like take turns, like setting it up and like things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm curious, what was like your so you couldn't really see it from that photo, but so the yurts were there, and then we have two different academic buildings. So there's the Headwaters building, the Confluence building that has like our classroom spaces and our dining hall, and then there's a barn that has like a bouldering wall. And was curious, what other ways did you guys kind of explore and utilize campus during your time?
We definitely spent a lot of time in the barn. I was friends with a bunch of people, and we would always just like make different routes on the rock wall and spend time like climbing that. And it was just a fun space for like everyone to go and like hang out. We had like a movie night in there one time that was super fun. And then there's also just like a lot of good places like around Confluence to study. Like I love there's like study halls when we all go out like on the back patio on the staples and like just get to work there and talk and look out at the mountains and stuff.
Yeah, awesome. That's wonderful. And so our fall and spring semesters, they do all the same things. Just the order in which they do so is reversed. So our fall semester, they start up in Idaho and then transition down to our Chilean campus at the end of October. And then they're down in Chile from end of October until our closing ceremony, graduation, all that kind of stuff in December, before then heading back home to have an extended winter break and then dive back into their school. Whereas our spring semester, we start up in Chile. So we all gather at the Atlanta airport typically, and then all travel down together to Chile, where we are until about mid-March. And then we transition to our Idaho campus, where then we conclude the semester. So I'm curious, what do you think of the fall semester, and what was it like starting out in Idaho and then making that transition down to Chile?
I like the way that my semester is structured a lot. I bet spring says the same, but I really like getting to know everyone in in Idaho, and it was just like having like Kelly's, which is like a whitewater park nearby, to like learn how to kayak. It was just really nice to like meet everybody on campus, and then we were all like so close by the time we were going down to Chile. And I don't know, it was just really also fun to like spend like our last time together like down in Chile.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what was the weather like? So I know that y'all, like, it starts out really wonderfully warm, but I believe, did y'all get some snow on your Idaho expeditions, or were you staying warm during that?
It never got super cold on our Idaho expeditions. I think like the last few days of backpacking we got a little bit of snow overnight, but it never got super cold.
Yeah. And then down in Chile, the seasons are reversed. So what was the weather like when you guys went out on expedition and down on campus?
I remember like our expedition was pretty good, like pretty nice weather. It got like a little bit chilly, but it was never bad, and we didn't have a ton of rain on expedition. We definitely had a little bit of rain when we got back to campus for like the next like week or two after expedition, but then after that it cleared up and it was so nice.
Yeah. Awesome. And it's what was that transition like going into like graduation and then flying back home, and what was that like?
Yeah. With the way that it worked with my school back home, we like graduated and I came back and there was like 2 days left of like my homeschool before they went on winter break. So it was super fun because I got to go back for a day and like see all my friends at school, but not go to classes yet. And then I just like reconnected with friends over the break. And honestly, it was a pretty smooth transition back to school for me. I'd been in like contact with a lot of my teachers back home, and so it was pretty fun.
Okay, Great. I think I hear from fall of like it's so busy that you're not sad very often because you're just like back in it. Whereas I think our spring semester, sometimes I hear the reflection of like, you have to make plans and actively like do things in the summer. Otherwise it can be very easy to just sit on one's phone and want to connect with your semester, all that kind of stuff. So pros and cons to either. So then, this is our beautiful Chilean campus. We have over 300 acres down here in the Patagonian Mountains. And you'll see just the structure as such. So refugios, quinchos, that kind of things are up a rather steep hill. And then there's the wonderful bodega. And then we've now added a dock and like rope swing for being down on the lake front, which I think is really fun. And then this is a better photo of it as well. So all of the students, it's 4 per refugio. It's cabin that students sleep in. And then there's quinchos, communal kitchen spaces, and that students use to make their own breakfasts and lunches. And classes can take place in there and things like that. So what was that transition like going from Idaho? You had how many students in your yurt?
I think we had 6, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So it's usually 6 or 7, then it reduces down to 4 students per refugio. So what was that change up like?
Like for us for the fall semester, we like had like a say in who was in our refugio, so it was like fun because like I got to be with some of the people I'd like gotten closer with in my time in Idaho, and it was super fun. It was just fun to like jump into like a new space with them, and I loved the quinchos so much. Like it was so fun to like be able to like cook, and like I hadn't had much experience cooking before, so it was definitely fun to like try out new recipes and like make meal like plans of like what do we need and what are we gonna make for the week with my friends. And then the quinchos were just such like a fun space to like come together and like work and just like spend time together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I would say that it's more rustic down in Chile. So for example, like the refugios, they don't have like electricity. They have wood, pellet stoves. And so like the heat and everything is still happening, but it is much more unplugged. So what was that like kind of going from, so on our Idaho campus, you have access to Wi-Fi. Everyone has their academic iPads, things like that. And then down in Chile, that looks different, right? You're just much more unplugged. So what was that transition like?
For classes, I feel like all my teachers had like a super like they knew exactly how they were going to go in, and so like we'd have been using online resources, but they had like everything was like PDF and like sent to us, and like we airdropped all of our assignments to teachers. So I think like for classes, it was like you didn't really miss the Wi-Fi because you had everything you needed. I think the biggest jump for me with that was like not being able to like talk to my friends back home quite as much. But honestly, like I was scared about that going into it, but it was such like a big plus for me because it was my last 6 weeks with all my friends at Alzar. So it really like made me make sure to spend the time like talking and like not spending time on my phone in my bed. I was like spending time like in the quincho talking or like playing games with people. So that was something that scared me a lot, but it definitely was like a super big plus for that campus.
Yeah. So what did it look like with like keeping your family up to date and staying in touch with friends? So what did that look like on a weekly basis?
We would have times during, it kind of changed throughout my semester, but we'd have times like during rest where we could go into town and then use like some of the time we'd spend in town we could use on our iPads, or we also use the Wi-Fi on campus a little bit at the end of the semester. So it was like just like I would like write my parents like an email throughout the week, and then I could send it to them of everything I've done, and then I'd hear about what they were doing, and then I'd like call some of my closest friends and get updates with them. So I still like I never really felt like I was missing out on anything, and it was just nice to be able to like tell them what I was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I should say, just logistically, the school will send out a weekly email to families with updates. So we do like a Facebook album with photos and things, and then just the logistics of what the students have been up to, what they're going to do next week, all that kind of stuff. So we try to, help facilitate like those updates and things for students throughout the time. Wonderful. And then we're about 45 minutes from the town of Coyhaique, Chile. So that's what Jenna was mentioning, that's where students get to go into town and they go grocery shopping. They get a budget of Chilean pesos and then have to work with their refugio mates to decide what they want to cook for every week. I like this photo from the spring semester. The photo, I think, does a great job of like smiling faces, but then Stephanie is the one kind of one back with the kind of unsure face because it is something that is challenging at different points. So you talked about, I'm glad that you enjoyed doing the cooking and things, but Yeah, was there anything that surprised you when you were going out and grocery shopping in Chile?
So I have always taken Latin back home. So I was in Spanish 1 my semester at Alzar.
Right.
So I think that was also something I was a little bit nervous about going into it. Just like having conversations with people and like, what is this? What am I looking for? And like, where do I find it? And I definitely like, we practiced that like a lot in my Spanish class of like, how am I going to say I want to find this when we get into town? And then also just like I would like stick with my friends who were like in Spanish 5 or like higher levels or whatever. So it made me nervous, but it honestly like was never that big of like an issue. Like I was able to get everything I needed, talk to everyone I needed to talk to.
Good. That's wonderful. And then I should mention, we also have Chilean students that are already always a part of our semester. And so oftentimes they're very helpful. And I think they enjoy almost, kind of showing around and helping out people as well. So how often when you go into Coyhaique every week?
I think we went around once a week, like we go on the weekend. I think it kind of changed depending on the week. But we had a bunch of days where we spent like the majority of the day in town and we could just like walk around in groups and like go get our groceries, but then also spend time in like the market and spend time in like the main area with like everyone and like just get to meet people.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I think it's just a wonderful opportunity. I mean, it's a pretty small city. It's like a population, I think, of like 50,000 or some. And, but it is a little bit more built out than a lot of the other rural communities that are in the area. So I think it's fun to see. Like there's a pretty big grocery store, right? There's like things like that. But then I think you still get a really wonderful opportunity to see a really different way of life down in Patagonia. Wonderful. Well, kind of transitioning over into academic world, we offer all the traditional math, science, history, English classes you would take your sophomore and junior year. Everything's at that honors or AP level. And then because of our time down in Chile, like Jenna mentioned, everyone does take Spanish. You don't need to have any prior experience. And we've seen a number of students, whether they've been in French or Mandarin or Latin, things like that beforehand. And then they just do our entry level Spanish class. Everyone also does PE and then enrolls in our capstone leadership course as well, which kind of goes through different styles and types of leadership. And I think it seems like it looks like it does a really good job of helping students really hone in on what are areas that they really strive in leadership and what are those areas of improvement throughout the semester. Is there anything else? How would you describe your time in our capstone course?
I think so. I didn't end up finishing my capstone project, but it was super helpful and like giving like I feel like I could have gone home and like been ready to like implement it. And it also just like the capstone course like over like lines up with like what we're doing with like leadership on expedition and things like that a lot. And so I think like it was really good to like we like learn something in the classroom, but then you're actually like on expedition like living it out like when you're like leader of the day and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I should clarify. Yeah, so about midway through the semester, students develop their own culminating leadership projects, which they then have the option of completing back at home in their home communities. So they identify something that they, want to either improve or be a part of in their home community, and then have the option to enroll in an online course after the semester. So just to give a context of what that CLP culminating leadership project is there. And then for your other classes, you mentioned Latin, obviously was one. Were you able to keep up with Latin or was that a part of your plan for the academic year? And if so, how did that go?
So I completed through Latin 4, which is what my school offers other than AP before I left. And so I just did like a semester elective when I got home on Latin literature. And so I didn't do a ton of Latin while I was gone, but I remembered everything I needed to, and like I was able to pick back up and work with my teacher, and that was totally fine the second semester.
Nice. And everything else, were you in pretty typical math, science, history, English classes?
Yeah, for English and for history, my school does for like upperclassmen we just do semester electives. So for those, I like started my course at Alzar, and then I was able to finish with like an elective and do like AP Gap for history and stuff like that. Cool. And then for my math and my science, I finished the year long I started at Alzar. And both of those, like I've been in contact with my teachers like while I was at Alzar, and then like transitioning home, I met with them, and it was a pretty easy transition. Like Alzar teachers helped me like there was like for like biology, there was like a few topics I was like, hey, I'm not sure we're covering this, and my teacher said I needed to know this. And so like I went and met with my teacher, and he like gave me resources and like met with me and helped me understand those things so I can prepare to go home.
That's wonderful. And I think because we have such small class sizes, I should have actually noted that as well. We have a really small student teacher ratio. That kind of individualized, I think, connections and things like that are needed for a variety of different, academic needs is something that's really just naturally built into the semester. The other part that I really appreciate is that our faculty are the ones that go out on expedition, and then also every teacher or staff member too is assigned a mentor. There's like usually 3 or 4 mentees, I guess, that are students. And so, yeah, can you describe what that process looks like throughout the week? You guys would have meetings and like when your mentor family, that kind of a thing?
Yeah. So I got assigned you find out your mentor like right before you get to Alzar, and like the very first day, like that was like a really good way to like get close with a few people because we'd have like dinner with our mentor family, and it was just a good like here's like a group of people for you to get to know at first. And then you have mentor meetings with your mentor like once a week, just during like a time you have like a free period during school. And it was super helpful because like if you had any issues in classes, you could like bring them up, or like they would address things that they knew you were struggling with. And it was also like, especially at first, like adjusting from like being at home to being at Alzar, it was just super helpful to have someone to talk to who like can help with the school stuff, but also help with like I'm like struggling with like making friends or like anything like that. Just a super good resource, like someone on campus from the beginning you can go to with like anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot of community development and group dynamics that happen. So like, for example, like when you go on an expedition, those are smaller groups. We're not like all going out together. So those are going to be different people that you've been living like versus in your year that you've been living with. Similarly, that transition going from the Idaho campus down to Chile, switching up the housing, and then again, expeditionary groups, activity groups, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a really helpful resource, like as students navigate all those different changes and things, to have a point person. And then in the evening, we also have like study halls. So academic wise, there's and then faculty have office hours as well. So there's just lots of spaces in which I think our faculty do a great job of supporting students and giving spaces for that there too. You'll see that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jenna. Do you have something you want to say?
Oh, I was just agreeing. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, great. And these photos I am particularly pulled because they are some of our lessons that happen outside of the traditional classroom. So, like, I think this one is environmental science, potentially, I would imagine, where you take river samples and learn about the ecology of a particular stream, things like that. But were there any other kind of expeditionary lessons, things like that, that stood out to you?
One of my favorites is we had a history lesson just like on the creation of Parque Patagonia and all of that, like while we were hiking through, like on our backpacking trip. So I really liked that one. And then we also had on our portage day on the Baker, we had a math lesson that was like calculating the volume of the rapid we were portaging, and then like would they be able to build a dam there? And so it was a lot because we like learned about everything, like all the like not controversy, but like conversations about dams and places like that, and then so like the history with that, and also just a math lesson. So I really like that one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. Those are great examples. And yeah, that's great. Did you guys end up, I know we moved to them now, of having tech-free expeditions. So like you just have an expeditionary book that you're going through the lessons versus having your iPads and things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Which I think, so that photo, I think it's great just to highlight that. I love that y'all are fully unplugged when you're on an expedition, but I think our faculty also, like when we're on campus, it's like, if it's a beautiful day, let's go outside and do this lesson. And I think the iPads really help with that throughout the semester as well. So that's great. Next up, talking about expeditions, we go on 2 different expeditionary blocks, a 2-week long block up in Idaho, and then a 2-week block down in Chile. But of course, leading up to that, we do lots of things to prepare students. So can you first go through, Jenna, the like orientation weekends as like we started the semester, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So like the first 3 weekends we do like orientation things. So I think there was a kayak clinic, our wilderness first aid certification, and then it was what was it called? Whitewater awareness.
I guess Swiftwater safety course.
Yes, like Swiftwater safety course. Yeah. So I had never kayaked before Alzar, and so that was like one of the things I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be learning this with people who have like done it so much. But those weekends were super helpful of just like like not like throwing you in because they like taught you everything as you were going, but it was like we're like the first weekend, like we're gonna go on a raft and we're gonna get in the water, and you're with the same groups for everything, so it's like a smaller group and like a good way to like get close with a few people at the beginning because we're doing everything with the same group. And like our first day of kayaking, like they started us off like super easy, and then we made groups based off of like our experience. And so like I was definitely a little bit nervous, but I like quickly became like comfortable with like trying things because I was like I knew like they knew like they were able to like explain things well and teach things well, and I was like learning it with everybody, which was awesome.
Yeah, what would you say? So coming in, what was the like experience level of the cohort? Like, how many? Like, were there and like was it a lot of students that knew how to kayak, all that kind of stuff, or what was that breakdown like?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had like a huge range of experience levels coming in because I had never kayaked before, and I think there was quite a few people who was also their first time. There were some people who like paddled like a little bit with their families, but not a lot. And then we had like a few guys who like paddle every single weekend and were crazy good.
Mm-hmm. And then similarly with backpacking, I would say that that's similarly, right? Where like some maybe have gone with families or like doing a summer program or summer camp, things like that. But that you're all kind of in it learning Alzar systems in particular. And then I think those that have a little bit more experience do a wonderful job of kind of leading their peers and supporting them as they're learning the process. But I think I always like to highlight because I was not a big outdoors person before, but you're not one of the only beginners. I think that's such a good feeling. It's like there's a few experts and then a majority are at that beginner intermediate level. It's just so much easier, I think, to have that breakdown of like not being the one beginner kind of a thing. So anyway, I always just like to note that there. And then when we're on expedition, we rotate through different crafts when we're on the river. So like, for example, this is an inflatable kayak, the green one that's pictured there. And then students will also go in like the oar raft, in a paddle raft, or in a hard trick kayak. So you'll have conversations about like, is this, the right rapid for you to go down in a hard shell kayak, or should you be in a different craft, that kind of a thing. Lots of conversations, and I think that's other fun thing to highlight. Like I personally I love an inflatable kayak. That's like my jam. Like hard shell is not for me, not my jam. So and I think students kind of start to hone in on that of like, oh yeah, can I do the ducky, the inflatable kayak, things like that. So anyway, any other is there a particular moment or memory that you have from one of your expeditions that you'd want to share?
I think honestly, this is a very controversial opinion. One of my favorite days ever was our portage day on the Baker, because it was like hard and it was like a challenging day, but it was just so much fun, and it was some of like the prettiest views we saw, and it was just like all of us like working together to get all of our stuff, and then we had just like a great fun lunch like at the top of the cliff, like overlooking the rapid that we portage. That was such like an awesome day.
That's wonderful. For those that are new to whitewater paddling, I know I wouldn't have known what portage was. Can you explain what that is and what that day involved?
Yeah, so it's a rapid when like you don't want to send all of your stuff and go down the rapid, you go around it. So it like involved like pulling all of our stuff over and then carrying. I think it was like, do you know how far it was? I don't know, but like carrying all of our stuff over to pass the rapid so that we could put in the rapid.
It's a decent hike. Like it's not like a little hop over. It's like you're walking for a while with some pretty heavy things. So yeah, but it's funny. I feel like I hear that from a lot of students that like they really enjoyed that day. Like yes, it's a lot of work, but like you're in it together. Yeah, it has that feeling of like we're all doing it, and yeah, it can be really fun. The other part I want to highlight that certainly takes place on throughout the entire semester, but is highlighted on expedition, is being leader of the day. Can you describe what being leader of the day is, and then if you have a memory of being LOD?
Yeah, so everyone's an LOD at least one time on expedition, and I think most people are like once on the river and once backpacking. And so when you're a leader of the day, there's like a group of like 2 or 3 of you, and you basically like meet with like the adults and like make a plan for what the next day is gonna look like. So if you're on the river, it's like we're gonna go this many kilometers. We're gonna stop here for lunch. We want to camp somewhere here. Sometimes if there's not like a campsite, it's like you're the people in the front who are like gonna go and scout out the campsite. And then it's also like coming up with like games and things to do at night, and just like helping keep the morale of the group like up.
Yeah. And then what does feedback look like? How is that built in as a part of the process?
So you get feedback every single night when you're a leader of the day. And so it's basically, it just helps us like apply what we're learning like in our leadership class and like learning out on expeditions. And so we would give feedback in the forms of like pluses, checks, and deltas. So pluses are things you're doing great, checks are things that are like pretty good, and then deltas are things you can like work on. And then it was super helpful when you were like leader multiple times because you could like take feedback from the group you were leading and then apply it the very next step.
Absolutely. And so is there a memory that you have of being LOD?
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. I remember just on the Baker, like just like I don't know, it was always fun just like sitting and like making airplanes together. And there was one night we didn't like know where we were gonna camp, so we gotta like paddle ahead and like scout out all our different campsites and then tell everyone like we're going here.
Yeah, awesome. That's wonderful. Well, I always like to also pause and just reflect on the fact of we had such we're always so lucky to have such a wonderful cohort of students that ultimately say yes to our semester experience. And so I'm curious, what were you initially, why did you look to do a semester away? What were you hoping to gain from your time at Alzar?
Mm-hmm. My school at home is K through 12, and so I love it that I've just been in like the same place my entire life, and so I really just like the idea of being able to like leave for a semester and like do something that like outside of like just like the bubble of my community in Dallas. And I had a sister-in-law who did a semester school when she was in high school too. So I was just like, I want to do this. I'm going to do this when I'm older. And then Alzar came and talked at my school one day when we had a bunch of different presentations that I was like, wow, I want to do that. That sounds awesome. So, yeah.
Wonderful. That's so great. And then I always like showing, yeah, this is the like near the end of the semester, very different than that opening day. But yeah, what would you say is one of your main takeaways from your semester at Alzar?
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of like the things that's like still impacted me the most is all the friends that I made there, and like just staying in touch and having so many friends like across the country. And like I feel like every time I went on like a college, sorry if it's really loud, I went on like a college visit or something. I was just like able to like stop by and like see a friend, even if it was just for a night. And I've had a bunch of people come visit me here. And then I just also think I learned so much. Like I never been like on like had like lived not with my parents before, so it taught me a lot about just like independence and like my friends here I've been friends with since I was little, so it was like I can be put in a room full of new people and like make friends that I'm like gonna be friends with forever. So yeah.
And then I know that a lot of students have that worry of like, right, you've known those friends like at your school for such a long time, and you're going to miss out on a semester of being away. What would you say to people that are, and maybe you even have those worries? What would you say to that concern?
Yeah, I definitely had those worries leaving too. And I would say like the biggest thing is like you're at your other school for 7 semesters. Like it's only one semester you're missing out of, and like your friends are gonna be there when you get back, and like you're missing out on like some of the stuff that you've done before. But like think about all the cool things you're doing that your friends are missing out on like while you're at Alzar.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was that transition like? Was it pretty easy to kind of get back in the swing of things? Like you were noting that like it was really fun to have like that one day seeing your
Mm-hmm.
friends back on campus and then yeah, getting to
Yeah.
connect with them over break.
Yeah, I think it was like nice coming back and having the break and just being able to like reconnect with everyone, and then just going back to school. Like you said, like it was so much was going on that it just like it felt like I'd kind of been there the whole time. Like I didn't feel like I missed
Great.
out on it.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Well, Jenna, thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to go through some logistics of the application process. So we're accepting applications currently, and this is the admissions team, myself and Abby. We are very much here to answer any questions and want to support you through the process. Everything happens online. So we have an online written application where you answer about 7 different supplemental questions about yourself, and then we also do an online interview, just a conversation with myself or Abby, where we get to know you a little bit more. And then we have recommendations and look at students' transcripts and just get a school form, just kind of signing off on you're doing well and that they're aware that you're looking at doing a semester away. And so we pull all those pieces together and are ultimately looking for students that are looking to do something more, right? That are wanting to challenge themselves to do all the fun, cool things that are going to take them outside their comfort zone in one way or another. And so that's kind of the common thread of what we're putting together within our cohorts. And so, yeah, those are the main things. If you have any questions about the process, we're very much here to support. And one of my favorite things is getting to connect with students as they first start out in the process, and then getting to see them all the way through, and then getting to hear them as alumni. So Jenna, thank you so much for sharing your semester experience. And I think we just have a few like kind of frequently asked questions that I'll go through. I'll stop sharing my screen. You don't need to see those as we're just talking. And so I know that, we talked a little bit about technology usage on both campuses. But I think students always want to hear about like what did it look like using? Did you have your personal cell phone? If so, when? All those type of things.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't have my phone for, I think it depends on your semester, but you won't have it at the beginning, right when you first arrive. And I think that's kind of just to like help you like be present and like you're meeting so many people and you're learning so many new things in the first few days that it's just like you don't even like have time to go on it. Like, yeah. And then later in your time in Idaho, you'll get it for like a little bit. Depends on like where, like yeah. So you have it for a little bit and you can use it like certain times of the day, but we never have cell phones in like learning spaces. So like in classrooms or like in like where we eat, things like that. And then we don't have them at all during the time when you're in class.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other question that maybe we're just getting more now because it's the fall is starting up. But for packing, like any, so I should just say logistically, we do provide a packing list. It's pretty like cut down, like there's not a lot of stuff. But what would you say like for packing? Any advice or things that come to mind for packing for the fall semester?
I mean, I think I followed like the packing list pretty closely, and I would say like just try not to add too much extra stuff to that because I know like for my semester we had so many people sending stuff home before we left in Chile from Idaho, and it's like you don't need like as many clothes and things like that as you do when you're back home. So it's very much like take as much as you think you need, but like not too much more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, so the other piece too, like if you forget things, like we are, in Idaho, so you can have things shipped, and vice versa. You likely, if you get things shipped, you'll have to ship back. But because we really do try to pare it down before we head down to Chile, because like I said before, it's just a smaller living space. We're just living more simply, I would say, throughout the semester. And yeah, so that's great. Any other, I'm trying to think, oh, the other question that we often get is what were you surprised by in the semester? Like is there no way you could have known unless you were to say right now for a student to be aware of?
I don't know about any like one thing. I think I just like because I didn't have a ton of experience. Like I've been on like a few raft trips with my family, but that was like the extent of like what I've done. So I was just like there was just a lot with that I guess surprised me, and like you learn so much in your first week of kayak clinic and like swiftwater training. But that was just all like new to me, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just like kind of surprising of like, oh, there's a lot of new information about me.
Yeah, there's so much to learn, but you learn it and it's so much fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jenna, for your time and for sharing your experience with us. Jenna's one of our wonderful alumni that's been nominated to be a part of our alumni committee. And so if you ever want to hear more or talk with Jenna, just reach out to the admissions team and we'll get you connected with our wonderful, alumni that have said yes to connecting with so many great interested students and things like that. So thank you so much, Jenna, and have a great rest of your day.
So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.